For those with good taste.
Welcome back, Tasties and Tastettes, to another movie review. This week we've got Red One. I'm Lenny. He's Dante. D33 Ray in the building. What is up?
What is up, y'all?
What up, fellas?
Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Yeah, hit that notification bell.
Can you get a drop for us for that? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I want like foghorns. I think I want, I don't know, trumpets. Maybe.
Can we get? Is there
like a royal decree?
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'd prefer that. Red One, quick synopsis. You were a bad kid your whole life and continued to do bad stuff when you were an adult that compounded with you being a deadbeat piece of shit until you realized that Santa might be a real thing. And then Lucy Liu was like, hey, what if we had all these other things in the world that you might be afraid of? And now The Rock is still really, really jacked, but is supposed to be an elf, and you have to save Christmas.
Yeah, that's about it.
I got it?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. Gotcha. Yeah. Who said we can't do synopsises of movies?
Yeah, I mean, the whole plot line in this movie just feels like a drunk idea. You know, you're sitting around with your buddies joking around about some shit, and somebody's like, yeah, I'm going to make the screenplay on this.
That's actually pretty accurate. Yeah. What if somebody got drunk and rewrote, or I think maybe it's more high. Like, maybe what if somebody got high and recreated all of the themes?
Because I could see like the concept of this just being a fun conversation. Mm-hmm. Like, you enjoyed the conversation so much, you're like, yeah, I'm going to make that.
People would really like that. Yeah. In theory.
See how much we enjoyed this conversation? They're going to feel that from this movie.
Yeah. It's kind of like, never mind. I don't want to bring down this channel in a minute. I was going to talk about your irrational fears. I usually we have to save that for the real podcast.
Yeah.
So quickly, let's run through some trivia, shall we, gentlemen?
Yep.
And ladies. So, did you notice, speaking of which, that Santa refers to his reindeers as ladies?
Yes, I did.
You did. Do you think that was weird, odd, out of the norm?
I do think it's odd just because I feel like some of them are definitely males now.
So generally, they are all depicted as males.
Are they?
And it actually stands to reason that the reindeers are, in fact, females, because only female reindeers keep their antlers in the winter. Male reindeers shed their antlers and grow them back in the spring.
I mean, historically, female reindeers are also generally the only ones that can fly. Now, there are exceptions, but, you know, genetically, it's usually just the females.
I mentioned this to Dave, and this might be a quick spoiler. I don't think it really is relevant to the plot of the movie at all. But Dante, did you notice an omission as far as reindeers are concerned?
My big red-nosed homie.
Yeah. Where, like, if we're going to rewrite all these Christmas things, how do we not just include the, like, we thought that would be the thing that took this?
That was the first thing I noticed, and it's crazy because, like, for a split second, I was like, is it a rights thing? And I was like, fuck no. Like red-nosed reindeers don't have rights? No, I meant, like, do they not have the rights to Rudolph? But, like,
okay. All right. I thought they were still segregating in the North Pole.
Yeah, and not even like a mention or a question like, hey, like, you would think that like Chris Evans's character would be like, yo, where's the main man?
Yeah.
Where's my boy Rudolph?
Well, that's even better point. Yeah. It never, like, in a movie that's like kind of supposed to be breaking the fourth wall as far as like the theme of like Christmas stories and stuff. It is weird that his character, which would have been the perfect one to question that, never even brings up. But maybe Dante is onto something as far as like, is there a company that still owns the rights to the story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? However, aren't there, like, the fact that we're getting these Winnie the Pooh spinoffs, and I think there's a Pinocchio, like these horror movie spinoffs.
Yeah, there's the Mickey Mouse one that just came out.
Yeah, that like aren't a lot of these past the point of like copyright law to where like you can make whatever?
Yeah, the Rudolph, the character is under copyright.
Is it Disney or something?
It doesn't. The quick Google AI doesn't say, but
interesting. And did they ever name? They never said the names of the other ones either. I don't think they said Donner.
I don't think they said a single name.
Right?
No.
So I guess that like they could just use reindeers, but they couldn't actually use the names of any of the reindeers.
That's weird.
Yeah. What if they just put like maybe one of them had nose piercings and they were Christmas lights?
Just red Christmas lights.
Yeah, that's how they got away with it. Like they could have done something like that.
Just a red septum piercing. Christmas light thing. Okay, reindeer. Hell yeah.
Okay, next up. So interestingly enough, this was originally supposed to be a Prime Video release, but it got changed to a theatrical release instead. And this is only important because of the budget for the movie. Have you heard what the budget is?
No. It's $250
million.
Huh?
Yeah. Do you want to have an idea where some of that money went to?
Oh, was it Dwayne?
Yes. So, did you know who held the record for the highest amount paid to an actor for a role?
For a singular role? No,
yeah.
But I know it's been like The Rock has had like the top of the year for like 8 out of the last 10 years.
That's total earnings though.
Yeah.
This, however, this is just like upfront earnings for a movie prior to release or anything like that. So there's two people who had previously made $40 million for movies. Robert Downey Jr. for Captain America: Civil War made $40 million. Okay. And Will Smith for King Richard made $40 million. Previous to this movie, The Rock's best paydays were $22 million for Jungle Cruise and $20 million for Hobbs and Shaw. They said that, so for this movie, he made $50 million. They said that his salary is most likely larger because they didn't anticipate having box office back end since it was going to be going directly to streaming, and that they had paid him more upfront for the movie, equating to the $50 million. Couple other things to keep in mind with this. This movie was finished filming and ready to go in February of 2023. And it didn't release till now. They said that this the extended production schedule is predominantly a result of Dwayne Johnson's erratic behavior during filming, if we remember all the stuff that came out about him being a piece of shit. Pissing in bottles and showing up late all the time. Right?
I do not recall that.
You don't remember the thing about him pissing in bottles?
No.
Yeah. He recently did, like, somebody asked him, he did an interview with Chris Evans, and somebody asked him about that stuff, and he was like, I am late sometimes, and yeah, I have pissed in bottles on set. Like, he admitted to the whole thing. Which is, props to him to at least, like, be like, I'm not going to dodge it anymore. But I'll get to why that's even more, like, hypocritical of him. So, it was due to his erratic behavior, more specifically his constant absence from set. Reports from an insider claim that Johnson would often be 8 hours late, causing delays that necessitated around additional rounds of shooting, as well as budget increases of around $50 million. So on top of the fact that he got paid $50 million,
he's also costing them
an additional $50 million. So $100 million of the $250 million budget is just The Rock. If you get down to it, if you break it down like that.
Jesus Christ.
This also resulted in complications for post-production. Curiously, The Rock, and this is where he's hypocritical, his issues with Vin Diesel stemming from Fate of the Furious, the 8th Fast and the Furious movie, was for him being unnecessarily delaying shoots by refusing to show up on time for filming. So he had called out Vin Diesel, and that's where their feud stemmed, and like why they separated off into their own Fast and Furious franchises, was due to him being critical of Vin Diesel for the same stuff that he is in fact doing.
Huh.
Yeah.
Sick.
I think that's all for budget that I really have. And the rest of this isn't all that interesting. I did find it, did you know this is the second time that J.K. Simmons has played Santa Claus?
When was the first time?
Recent. I've never seen this or heard of this movie either.
No.
He did a movie called Claus in 2019. Not like Kitty. But like Santa.
As in Santa. Yeah, no, I figured. Yeah.
Just wanted to be clear.
I got that. Yeah.
You just that one just hit the
Stupid.
So yeah, that's some of the stuff. I did want to talk about one other thing before we got into the actual review that I had pulled up here. So I wanted to talk about The Rock and continue the theme of The Rock, because obviously this is a Rock-centered movie with a splash of Chris Evans and Lucy Liu on the side, and a hint of J.K. Simmons.
Just a dash.
And then another hint of Kiernan
Shipka.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll start here. Do you guys know The Rock's highest rated movie on Hot Rotten Tomatoes? It's pretty easy. Don't overthink it.
Is it Hobbs and Shaw?
No.
Oh.
You're overthinking.
Rampage.
Moana.
Damn. So Moana's got 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. I just was curious because like then this will tie into the review itself before we get into spoilers, I suppose. The issues I have with this movie are predominantly, me and you talked about this a little bit the other day, Dave, and I told you I wanted to save most of this for the pod. I think the issues a lot of people have with this at this point is you're either into The Rock's like shtick or you're not into The Rock's shtick. And I was curious because this isn't getting great reviews about like where was his peak and what movies do people really like still love? And I in going through his Rotten Tomato thing, I want to just point out something. Moana, animated. Okay. Second highest movie on there. You guys probably haven't seen it. I have Fighting with My Family, which he just produced. He had a very minor role.
I've been wanting to see that, and I guess only recently I knew it was obviously the story about Paige.
Yes.
And I knew Nicholas Frost plays her father in that. But it wasn't until like a month or two ago that I found out that it was Florence Pugh.
Yes.
Because I think I saw all the trailers and everything for that movie prior to knowing who Florence Pugh was.
That was one of her earlier takeoff. Like that movie. The movie's very good. And like to be fair, Rotten Tomatoes is a 93%. It's very highly reviewed. Third movie on there, Furious 7, which is one of my least favorite Fast and Furious movies, but neither here nor there. Fourth movie, The Other Guys. Fifth movie, Fast 5. It's not till you get to Jumanji that I really think that he is the predominant star. Like Moana, he's the star, but it's an animated movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The rest of those are more ensemble cast. And you could even argue that Jumanji, for that matter, is kind of an ensemble cast because he's also piggybacking on that was peak Kevin Hart too, right? Like popularity levels. Not to say either one of these guys aren't popular anymore, but like public opinion was at the highest for Kevin Hart at that point.
And I think also within Jumanji is he still kind of can do his normal stuff, but he has to play a role where he is playing a 17-year-old kid.
Yes. Yeah.
So it is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. So like that's the first one that I kind of accredit to like, yeah, The Rock did really good in that movie. And so I just thought it was interesting, even going further down the list, like The Rundown is at 10. And I think that is like one of his first actual like standalone acting roles as like the lead star.
Yeah.
And I guess it leads to the criticisms that I think a lot of people have is that like there's a large gap between The Rundown and where we are now and him as a leading person who's relied on to carry a movie, putting forth quality efforts in a movie. And I think that this movie in some ways suffers from just the overall issues that he has. Going back to like, I compare this to a movie like Skyscraper, which it's just like the action scenes in it are there. There's action sequences, but none of it feels real enough. And you know, last week we talked about Mission Impossible. We talk about it quite often. Like the thing that separates movies like those from a lot of other big budget action movies is the feeling of like stakes, because you know that like the filming isn't done with a ton of CGI and like gimmick to it. Where I just think at this point, there are a lot of Rock movies that are built upon gimmicks with CGI, and it's not reliant on him actually doing the physical aspects of these movies. I'm sure he puts in a lot of work for it. I don't mean to diminish it that way, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the beef you have is like the show of his ego. It definitely comes through on.
I think it started
these,
there. Yeah, I think that's where it started with the Fast and Furious like point system that they had and all of that. And I think that's been the downfall of where a lot of these movies have gone. Yeah, is that like even this? It's like, dude, what's this movie rated? PG-13?
Probably. Actually, yeah.
There's no blood in this movie, right? They show no damage in this movie. And I even find that interesting because he's definitely getting hit, and like Chris Evans is getting tossed around. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't really remember there being any cosmetic damage done to either one of them. And
I feel like the only thing they really used the PG-13 rating for is for some of the language.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's fine. Like that's what it should be there for. But PG-13 allows you to have blood, you know? And I just think that not even blood, but like bruising or something to show you like that you're human.
I think maybe they were trying to keep it more like family friendly.
The only thing I can think of is The Rock's face got really red after like that first
The slap. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but he almost has this persona now where I think he is a superhero.
Oh
in
yeah,
every
100%.
movie.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously like where the you get to his character in like almost every movie is just it's recurring where obviously he's just this big tough guy who is unfazed by every situation that he is in, regardless of what character he's playing, who always just comes in with the funny quip, the funny line, because he doesn't really care what's happening around him.
And that kind of goes back to my whole thing about his ego coming through on screen.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that it's a theme that works in a way too, because even going back to the rundown, he is great when he is paired with like a quick talking second star, right? So Sean William Scott, Kevin Hart, he's done the Ryan Reynolds thing. Now he's got the Chris Evans thing. When you put him with people that are like quick witted and he can bounce back and forth, that's a good formula. I agree. Like he should keep doing that. I don't have a problem with that being part of it. Even going to the Fast and the Furious movies, him and Tyrese's character, like on screen mesh that they have, chemistry that they have, I think is fantastic. But
I mean, the Jason Statham as well.
Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw is great, right? They even in Fate of the Furious, they're very funny together, you know. But it's the action, I think, that is the issue why I think people have fallen out of love with these. And I didn't even mention, I think the movie has only made $30 million or $40 million so far.
I think it's about 33.
Yeah, on that $250 million budget. So I think it's very clearly an indicator that the general public is not into these movies anymore. And I think it's because you feel like you're getting the same thing over and over again with just like a new paint job, basically.
It's accurate.
You were saying though, Dave, that you still like him generally, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think going back to Fast is going to help him tremendously. Like, I think him being back involved in the Fast and the Furious franchise, where even though he seems like he's still a superhero and he can't take damage, he's surrounded by other characters that are built up to be on an even level with him in a way.
True.
You know, so I think I think career wise, and I think he's a smart guy, and I think that's why he's ending the beef with that and going back to the franchise, because I think at his peak, Fast 5 is like peak popularity level for him, where we're saying for maybe Kevin Hart, like Jumanji was peak movie theater credibility for him.
Yeah.
You know, so the movie itself, non-spoilers, just a quick little temperature check on how we all felt about it. I know how you feel. I think you know how I feel. I'd be interested to hear Dante before we say our opinions. Me and Dave saw it together, if you want.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Damn. Wow. Huh. Really, guys?
Yeah.
Without me?
Well, I saw a twofer and then Dave got out of work.
Like, we got a thing going here. Like, you didn't think to include me?
There was only 2 seats available. It wasn't a 3-seat set, so it wouldn't have really worked.
And we had a third guy that kind of just tagged along to our experience.
Oh, a different third guy.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about that.
Because you didn't have the 3 seats available.
Funny enough, the third guy is you in like 40 years.
Oh, you met up with a rando at the theater.
Well, he met up with us. I was sitting in the theater by myself because like I went from one movie to another, and he walked into the theater and he walked in pointing at me and just staring at me, saying stuff.
Because he recognized you from the other movie?
No, I've never seen this man before in my life.
I'm saying you said you went from one movie to another.
I'm telling you, Dante, I have never seen this man.
So he wasn't in the other movie prior with you?
No. And he walked in and he pointed at me and started talking to me as he went to his seat. And you know how it was in the theater where like it has the singular handicap seat with the like the posts around it or whatever, you know, in the bigger Braintree theaters.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
you know what I mean? The railings. I'm sorry. I'm forgetting words in real time.
I was trying to scan through my head and all the theaters, you know? I was like, which one?
So then during the movie, he proceeded to like me and Dave, when Dave showed up, he would just turn around and say stuff to us before the movie started. And shit you not, 3 minutes into the movie starting, he was asleep. And like not like asleep quietly.
And you say that's me in 40 years? That's crazy.
You fall asleep not quietly in movies. He had attributes that you have. Like there was.
It just sounds like he
similarities.
wasn't a likable person, and like,
well,
you're likening me to that.
You're likable. He's probably funny in all honesty. Like you walk into a movie with that confidence, you got something going on, Dave. There's a natural charisma about that man. Okay, back on track. Your temperature check.
It's lukewarm. It's not really anything. You definitely shouldn't go to the theater to see this. I mean, when it comes to streaming, sure, like if you got nothing else, but I mean, I probably say don't recommend.
Knowing now that it was supposed to be a Prime Video release, does that open your eyes at all to like the quality of like?
I mean, the whole time I was watching it, I thought it felt like a Netflix movie. So like,
yeah,
that's pretty on brand.
I don't know. I guess I'm alone on this ship.
Yeah, so like that's where I wanted, like, because I wanted to see if he was on your side or my side.
Yeah,
that's why he sits in the middle of the table, ladies and gentlemen.
I thought it was really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I walked out.
So this is one of those movies where like, I think back to like what Lenny said, where he's like, the worst thing a movie could be is just there. It was kind of just there. Like, no, I didn't hate it, right? But like, it's not something I'm going to say, oh my God, you got to check this out.
Nah, see, I disagree. I think like the character work between Chris Evans and The Rock were pretty good. Everybody else in the movie was kind of, I would say, lukewarm. Lucy Liu's character was kind of just Nick Kroll's character was just weird. J.K. Simmons I thought was pretty good as a Santa. Mm-hmm. And then like I like Kiernan Shipka. I thought it was kind of her character was a little off at the beginning.
She was underused, I feel.
And then I thought kind of made a little bit more sense towards the end.
Her voice, her first scene in the movie, I was like, were they going with an accent? And then all of a sudden, it was just normal voice for the rest of the movie.
Okay, but yeah, when they're like breaking into the bubble,
yeah,
and she's like, "Have at it, lads."
Yeah,
and I was just like, okay.
I literally said to myself, I was like, "That's a choice."
Yeah.
And then it was just normal, like Kiernan Shipka from there on out. I was also surprised her star level is not that high to be chosen as the lead villain opposite The Rock in a movie. Did you think that was weird? And once we get into spoilers, I guess we can like speak more to how it played out and why I think it was okay. But I thought that it was an interesting choice when I realized she was the villain. Because I thought that she was when I saw that she was in it, and I never really watched like trailers, I don't think.
I didn't see a single trailer for this.
So yeah. I assumed like maybe like a Chris Evans love interest or like, like a side character within that world.
Yeah, okay.
Like I think her general personality that I've seen from her in movies, she would work better being in like Santa's like team,
Like as like
an elf.
Or just like one of the just some type of
she's not, jacked enough to be an elf, I don't think.
That's a good point. Or a polar bear. But like one of the people who's even or maybe in like the room that's like the headquarters room that like communicates with The Rock when he's out doing stuff, or like just some type of a character that's more in the background area, similar to even she was such a small role in like Twisters, to where you remember her in it. It's like a kind of important part of the movie, but she's not like a main part of the film. I just don't think of her as like, I'm gonna cast Kiernan Shipka as the opposite to The Rock in a movie. So I thought that was weird. This is one of those weird ones where with Dave, to where like that I've talked about in the past, where he'll be the most critical person in the world on a movie that I think is like pretty good. And then we'll see Venom.
Like
yeah, we'll see Venom and he'll be like, this is fucking great. Because there's things I agree with you on. I enjoy the idea of taking a lot of the fourth wall breaking stuff, of like taking all of these traditional Christmas themes and giving them an interesting spin that's almost like paranormal in some ways.
But like that, yeah, that's definitely the part of it I enjoyed. Like that's where I go back to saying it just feels like a group of buddies sitting in a circle having to talk about like what if, and like
I think that there's an interesting world that they have here that they could explore and do stuff with. I think that they built an interesting like ecosystem that this like world, like this story exists within, that kept me engaged. And I'm not saying like I thought it was perfectly acceptable for like an hour and 45 minutes, however long it was. Like
it felt a little long, I think, but
I guess I didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome. But at the same time, I think I was so drawn back by there's not very much that's standout in this movie for me, aside from the chemistry between, like, I think Chris Evans' character and The Rock's character being very good. And then to your point, J.K. Simmons and The Rock, I think, having very good on-screen chemistry as well. Like, I think that there was performances in this, themes that I enjoyed, but the action was the main drawback to me, with really only one action sequence being a standout to me at all throughout the movie. So for me, it's definitely you have nothing to do and it's on a streaming service. Go ahead and watch it. Definitely worth watching for, like, just to put it on one night because you have nothing else going on and you want to watch something you haven't seen before. But I'm not going to tell you to go out of your way to see this. I also, another thing before we do spoilers that me and you talked about, Dave, I thought it was interesting, the release timing on this.
Yeah. Typically, like, you see like a very heavily themed Christmas movie. Like, I want to see it closer to Christmas.
Not before Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Obviously, this gives you a larger release window, so you can have it out for 4 to 5, 6 weeks, whatever. Make as much money with it as you can before Christmas, because then come post Christmas, like, nobody's going to want to see this movie.
I think the problem is there's too much it would be going up against.
Well, this is
right?
where I was going to say the release window issue here. Wicked, Gladiator, Moana, all released this month, still to come.
Yeah.
That, like, those are going to take up multiple theaters in a movie theater, right? Like, how
this thing's going to get shadowed out starting this weekend? Yeah,
yeah. And especially if it only makes $30 million, it's not going to get legs. I think if it came out and it made $80 billion this weekend, then
they might give it more.
Then you'd have a 6-week run. I think this thing. I think in a perfect world, if they were going to do it this way, release it week 1 of November. And then have it ready to go for streaming Christmas Day.
Right.
Yeah, if they bring it out to streaming, honestly, before Christmas, I would probably sit down and watch it again.
I would watch it again. I thought it was okay enough that I would, like, this is not a movie that I'll never watch again. I thought it was mediocre. Like, that would be my end probably opinion on it. Is it had some bright spots, but it also just didn't. It just felt kind of there for a lot of it, you know. And especially where we talk about this theme of The Rock, like, it just felt like too many of the other Rock movies to where I'm like, if you've seen a Rock movie, you've kind of seen this one before.
It's just, it's like at points, it's like it wants it to be more grandiose than it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did think the release timing was weird. I think part of it might be a Rock thing to where he is like, I know Moana's my bigger movie. So why have them compete against each other at all? And basically this comes out, does whatever it's going to do, and then Moana's where I'm going to invest my promotional muscle into, you know.
Okay.
All right, and 3,
2,
1.
Spoiler.
It'd be cool if you had like a thing that goes across the screen that like kind of like it's like
the IMAX countdown on the screen, like
you could do that, and then it's like the spoiler thing like shows up. Yeah, figure it out. Maybe not now, but like sometime.
Yeah, you guys use your imagination.
All right, so we'll try to do a kind of synopsis / breakdown of the movie now with obviously spoilers, and we'll interject with some of our opinions.
I'll have them.
So the movie starts off with a young Chris Evans character, Jack O'Malley,
fat.
Young fat,
yeah. He's a young fat,
and obviously they basically just play up the fact.
Sounds like a small Asian boy.
Chow Yun Fat.
They play up the fact immediately that he is a Christmas skeptic, and they kind of sprinkle in a little backstory for him as a child already that his father is missing. Is not important to this story whatsoever. Never really comes up again. I think it might be mentioned once, but it has no bearing on
I gotta say, I thought that was going to be one of those things that would come back, but
Santa's
I thought Santa would be his dad, honestly. Like, that's where I thought that was going to go.
That chimney one.
Not his dad.
Dad.
Right? Flash forward to a grown-up Jack O'Malley, and his first scene is basically walking through and showing how big of a piece of shit he is, and breaking into the seismology center to unknowingly find the coordinates for Santa's workshop at the North Pole.
Would you have liked a scene of, like, because he eats the cookies and drinks the milk? Like, I would have liked to have seen Santa
pull up and be like, yo, what the fuck?
Like, especially when you get further in and you're like, the regimen. You're like, he kind of needed that, right?
He needs that fuel, yo.
Like, I'd like to see Santa gassed because he gets to that house and he can't have his cookies.
Oh, man.
This entire scene goes through multiple aspects of obviously Jack O'Malley being
debaucherous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Starting fires, stealing key cards, breaking in, obviously stealing data, and then obviously stealing candy from a baby.
I think it establishes a couple of important things for the theme of the character trait, right?
Thing,
yeah, like within 5 minutes, this guy's an asshole, but he's talented. Like, it basically outlines that character for you.
And then the stealing candy from the baby is like, this is how much of an asshole.
Mm-hmm. I think the relationship to his son does more for that than like stealing candy from the baby does.
I mean, I think that's just an initial like kind of tone setter.
Yeah, I get it.
Steals this data, sells it off, gets some money, uses it to fund his gambling addiction, to which he immediately loses the money within like seconds of getting the money.
Mm-hmm.
They never really did much with his gambling addiction either.
No, I think it was just a character flaw.
Yeah, another debaucherous like aspect of his character.
Yeah.
And then he's got to go. You find out that he was formerly married and has a kid. And he's asked by his ex-wife to go pick up his kid at school because he's done something bad. His ex-wife cannot go pick up the kid because she is currently a nurse in a hospital and is going into like help with, I think, a pregnancy.
Woman in labor. Yeah.
So he goes, picks up the kid, drives her to her house where she's already at home.
Yeah, could have. Which, do you think in retrospect, is that a manufactured thing by her to try and have him be more involved?
I mean,
if it was, they didn't really hint to that at all.
Yeah.
She was just kind of like, oh yeah, I guess they were further along than we thought.
Yeah, I wonder if that's something they were trying to hint at, just because you get the part of her being like, he wants to see you more, and you get some of that later.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, I do think that the relationship between him and his kid could have been, I thought it was good, but I think it could have been even explored maybe more than it was.
Yeah, they didn't have enough like screen time with it, and then they just kind of dump it on you.
And that's where I say to myself, like, the part about the stealing the candy and setting the fire and all this stuff, it's like, if you had eliminated some of that and invested more into the relationship between him and his kid, would there be more depth to that story and that character?
I think it gets tricky with trying to like seek depth in a movie that doesn't need to be over 2 hours. You know what I mean?
But that's why I'm saying shave out 5 minutes from that other shit and invest those 5 minutes into more context. Because I think the car ride with the kid, like, you even see like his perspective on like the kid doing bad and stuff like that. Like, I like that conversation that they have in the car. I like the way the kid handles certain things between them. Like, I just think I would have liked a little bit more and maybe shave some of that other stuff out. I do understand why you need the seismology thing, because obviously it sets up the rest of the plot. But so next up was the North Pole,
and then you get the scenes of Keenan Shipka's character coming in, breaking through the invisible force field wall.
The one other thing I thought was interesting before that actually was the fact that like the government knows about Santa.
Yeah.
Like the whole,
because they were like, oh, alert the prime minister.
I like the scene in the mall. I thought that was funny, right? Like with the
that was where I got the first idea that I was like, oh, this is just a group of friends having like a what if conversation, because I was like, oh, like what if the mall Santa is actually the real Santa?
Yeah, like what if he pops up and does real appearances?
Yeah.
And nobody's like questioning, like, why isn't Santa fat?
Because a man that has to do what he's got to do.
Yeah, but like, no, we've all questioned that forever, and instead they just were like, yeah, the answer is he's jacked.
Yeah,
like,
I would have assumed like from like Christmas all the way till like November, December, he puts on all this weight and then he burns it off on the night.
Yeah, Well, because the Tim Allen Santa Claus movies, doesn't he go from being skinny and then the night of Christmas he gets fat?
Yeah.
Basically. So yeah, Karen and Shipka.
Yeah, so they break in. The Rock's doing his sentimental, it's my last run walk. Like, it's my last Christmas run with Nick, doing his walk, looking at the old workshop.
Because he doesn't believe in people being good anymore.
Yeah,
right?
he doesn't.
Basically,
he doesn't see the Christmas joy, the Christmas magic in like adults anymore. Essentially, everybody's growing up to be bad in today's world.
Yeah,
not bad, naughty.
Pause.
So then obviously, yeah, he sees lights going out in the tower, gets his whole team together. Hey, who's got eyes on Red? We got to go find Red.
Did anybody get like Wakanda vibes from when we first see the North Pole?
The way they fly into the North Pole.
Like the dome and like the one big tower in the middle and everything. And I was like, this is Wakanda.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, no,
it's very
you're
much
definitely
Wakanda.
on point with that.
Yeah, it's very, very much Wakanda. You're right. I like the idea of like Santa being the president, though.
Oh,
I do
Red
like
one.
that. Yeah, like I do like that aspect of it. Because when they first announced this movie, all I could think about was that movie Red Notice that he did. That I was like, oh, is this just another movie like that he's doing? And I like that this is just like, like Red One is literally Santa Claus, and it's because he's the most important person, and like he's the president of the North Pole, and like he rides on Air Force One basically, and that's his sleigh, and
then the elf is like the Secret Service. Yeah,
this is where like there's
like conceptually I like them.
Yeah, there's definitely themes in this movie that I enjoy, that they just it's just like outrageous, and I think that that's where the Rock stuff does work at times, of like, this is so stupid, but I like that it's stupid and clever at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think parts of it don't work if he doesn't like take it as seriously, I guess.
I think his thing though is being the seriousness in the midst of all
the ridiculousness. Yeah,
because even like the Fast and the Furious character is Hobbs is like, he says a bunch of like stuff that's really stupid, but because of his delivery, it's
funny.
It's delivered, and it's like, this guy is so ridiculously macho that it's funny. Yeah,
I can see that.
This is where my gripe though is this action sequence is my biggest issue with a lot of this movie, I think.
Yeah, so Santa Claus gets kidnapped, and it leads to this mess of CGI chase of the Rock jumping off of buildings and sliding down conveyor tubes to try and catch up to, these vehicles.
And just none of it looks real.
No.
Like the part where he like jumps from the Bobcat or like the snowmobile onto the top of the thing, and I'm like, this just looks so obviously done on top of a stationary thing that's like rocking back and forth in front of a green screen, that it takes me out of the action of the movie to a point, Yeah. And I think that's where I was like, it's the first notch down this movie took for me. Was like, this is your first chance to like get me bought in, is you've set up something that's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like some interesting themes. And if you had killed this action sequence, I think that you have something here for me where I'm more invested. And instead it kind of just like trips over itself a little bit with not being more on location or more like practical stunt work being done.
Yeah, I mean, they spent enough money on this movie. They could have made it look better.
Do you think it's impossible to find a Rock stunt double, and that's why they just can't do it?
I imagine that's kind of tough.
I mean,
I don't think it's impossible.
He's got enough family members.
That mission might be. Yeah, you think they just find a Samoan?
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, I guess kind of want to just like, jump a little ahead. When we found out the reveal that, hey, the Bobcat or whatever, the vehicle was empty and it was a drone. And then you look up and you see this vehicle flying away. Were you guys at any point cognizant of the twist that we found out later in the movie.
No, I don't think I really thought about it at all.
So I kind of caught on to that immediately because pretty much for that entire chase, like he's chasing the one vehicle. You never ever saw like a swap or anything like that. So like I just kind of assumed that the second vehicle that you saw flying away was also a red herring.
So here's the issue, though, in the plot of this movie. I think the idea is that they've never known where the North Pole is, right?
And then all of a sudden they know exactly.
Which I'll point out a couple reasons why this is a problem. The idea is that she had to use Chris Evans to find where the North Pole is. But then she has intimate details as to the fact that there are tunnels that run underneath the North Pole. So she's aware of the landscape of inside of the North Pole, but had no idea where the North Pole is. So how'd she get that information? My second issue is, why would she
snuggled up to Krampus?
Well, this is what my point, though, is why did she need Chris Evans to find the North Pole if the answer is that she had a relationship with Krampus? Because why wouldn't she have known where the North Pole is if she knows all these other details about the North Pole?
Maybe he just never told her.
He told her, yeah, like we used to hang out in the underground bunker underneath the North Pole and all of these things, but he was never like, yeah, like the North Pole is like here.
That's top secret.
She couldn't get that information from him, but she found all this other secret information from him. Like there's just two competing issues here. Like I understand the answer of like the reason she would know about underneath the North Pole is she had a relationship with Krampus, but then she wouldn't need Chris Evans to find the North Pole in my mind. Without an explanation, like if you had thrown away,
because they made it like a whole thing where it was like he was kicked out, right? Like he was going overboard with the whole
for
like,
a long
punishment
time,
thing, right? Long time, yeah, exactly. Could it be like maybe like they changed location or something and like didn't tell him, or like I don't know,
because then the tunnels wouldn't be there.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
the North Pole is the North Pole.
As much as like you get from Krampus's character later on, like he still loves his brother. He still believes in the mission more or less, even though he kind of wanted to do some of it
different
himself.
ideals on the way that they would do it.
So he didn't want to betray his brother, so he knows that he can't give up the location.
But then he's telling an evil woman about the layout.
I think he was just telling stories, like, you know what I mean, like times I remember, and you're telling a story, but it's like, oh no, I can't tell you where the place is. I probably told you too much already.
I mean, I think she was also somewhat a part of the operation back when Krampus was there as well.
I don't know if that's accurate.
I don't think so.
Because she's always been bad. Wasn't that the whole premise, is that she's always wanted to punish the naughty kids?
Yeah.
Like that's why they ended up being a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to stick on this, but that is just a plot flaw to me that could have probably been explained with like a 3-minute scene that's like maybe a flashback with Krampus in her.
I will say I did like the Krampus character.
Yeah, Krampus was I thought it was a good part of the movie.
Yeah.
I didn't like, well, so let's keep progressing.
A little off track. All right, so yeah, Santa gets kidnapped, and then we learn about, I don't remember the exact name of the agency, but like the Mythical Enforcement Agency or whatever.
Mora.
Yeah. So you learn about Lucy Liu, and basically they keep tabs on all the mythical creatures and whatever throughout the world.
Which I really do enjoy the idea of, like, this is where I think that they built a cool world. And I was saying to you, Dave, that the introduction of that organization to me is the idea of the ability to make sequels off of this movie. And, I think getting back to like The Rock being $100 million of the budget of this movie, I think there's a world where they can do sequels without The Rock, and just if Chris Evans wanted to come back
for like under 100
and do a streaming related movie or an Apple TV fucking TV series or something that's a short limited run of another, mythical entity that they're working with.
Yeah, like Johnny Appleseed got out of control. So
we gotta go after.
We gotta go.
They have to go after Jack and the Beanstalk.
So then, obviously,
ruminate on it.
They very quickly find out that Chris Evans's character, Jack O'Malley, is the one who sold the information. And then they go to pick him up, and then you get like the fight sequence in his apartment with their little freeze guns.
Which actually is one of the better ones.
Yeah.
And because again, it looks like it's him actually doing the stunts that he like. Even if there was a stunt double in there, those things are actually happening.
And obviously you get, like, to your point earlier, you get a fight scene with like no blood, no gore. Everybody is just kind of tased or shot with these guns that just instantly freeze you.
I like those. It's kind of like the Low-Key.
Yeah, I thought they would come back, but they literally only use those devices for that scene.
Yeah, that's kind of an issue.
Yeah,
because why wouldn't they just give him one of those?
I thought he was going to keep one.
Yeah.
So he gets captured, brought back to their enforcement agency, gets interrogated,
gets introduced to like all these things that
the Headless Horseman.
Yeah, that were established that he doesn't believe in very early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got the. I think you had seen him earlier, but you get another the big polar bear guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't remember what his name
was. Which I like the good cop, bad cop, like interrogation thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought that was funny. Like there's little bits in this movie that I think are funny. And worked. And like I think him and The Rock and Chris Evans played off of each other very well. Can we advance to the beach?
Yeah. Sure.
Because I think that's really the next
all right, so
scene, right?
Chris Evans' character obviously is labeled as the bad guy, who then gets hired by this agency to then be the good guy. You know, he found out where the North Pole was, he's good at finding people. Now you're going to help us find Santa. And then one quick segue, I think, but before you get to like the beach scene, how did you guys feel about the international connected toy store travel?
It's fine.
Outdoors.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Like
I think it was a cool throwaway like explanation to how they travel place to place.
Yeah, I thought it was just like a fun again taking these ideas that kind of just threw together a bunch of stuff and like that's one that I'm okay. Like it works perfectly fine. Yeah. Like I didn't blow my mind or anything, but like it also then it opens the idea of like how many people are in on the idea of Santa Claus being real.
Yeah, because I was like, oh,
who are all these guys walking?
I was like, is every
toy
store employee just supposed to be like shitty that doesn't notice this dude just walking in and out of your store?
And The Rock's like is always in costume. Like he's never he never makes himself blend in. You know,
if I see somebody grabbing product in my store and going towards the supply closet, it's like, yo, I'm calling the cops.
Yeah. So like, how many people just know that Santa is a thing, and how are they all sworn to like some type of secrecy? And again, this is another plot thing to where like they probably could have explained it in like a 2-second thing to where they swear an oath or there's a spell that they're all like, you know, bound to, that they can't tell the secrets of Santa, or something happens that like, you know, like I just think that there's like ways that there's certain things that they could just explain away fairly easily.
Yeah.
So they travel from toy store to toy store. Did they go to, was it Aruba or the Bahamas?
Dante.
Aruba.
Okay. So they traveled to Aruba because that is where they found out that person who they sold this seismic activity data to is currently at.
We get introduced to the Rock's fancy.
Well, we got introduced to that earlier with the snowmobile.
The reality,
we got the explanation
accelerator,
okay,
or whatever it's called.
Yep. Yeah, cool little contraption.
I wish I could turn my Hot Wheels into life-size cars.
That would be a dream come true for you.
That'd be lit.
And I like that, like Chris Evans.
You know how much that would save me on like parking space too? Like,
just throw it back in your pocket.
I just go into downtown and I'm just like, all right, yeah, let's shrink this, toss it in my pocket. Don't got to pay for parking.
I like that Chris Evans like did what like many dudes would do and like
Wonder
grab
Woman.
the Corvette.
Yeah.
Oh
no, that too. But like no, just like find the hot girl toy and be like, does it work that way?
You get introduced to Nick Kroll's character.
His body being taken over by whatever her name is
was really bad.
Grilla. Yeah,
it was odd.
It was a choice.
Yeah.
The voice was
props
the really
to him.
Annoying part too. Yeah,
I think it's odd, but props to him to just own it. You know, like he didn't like half-ass that in any way. He was fully bought in to whatever the directors told him to do, and he just did it. And it was definitely a choice. I didn't love it. Because you didn't need to do all of that to like convince me that you were taken over by somebody.
The other thing too is like, immediately following that encounter, we get the abominable snowman, right?
Which I feel like should have been used more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But like they presented it in that scene as like, oh, these are our henchmen. Yeah. But we never see them again.
Yeah, I think they were just playing on the fact that, hey, we're going to put like...
We just want to introduce another concept of the mythological world.
Yeah, and we're going to show you them fighting in a place where, they shouldn't exist on the beach.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like I think it would have been fairly easy to throw in there too, because like once he figures out how to beat them, like I feel like he could have run through a few of them fairly easy towards the end before he gets to just like these 12 normal dudes that he's gonna fight, I think that it would have also given more like fodder for like the entire group to end up fighting at the end by having those like running around too, and made that fight scene, I think, more of the fight scenes later on more interesting since you introduced them rather than just like having 3 of them, unless you can only create 3 of them. Which, whatever. But I thought that was one, that's the standout fight in the movie to me, probably. Yeah. Is the Abominable Snowman one.
I think either that or like when they go to capture Chris Evans, but yeah.
Yeah, those would be the 2 best by far.
Yeah, obviously there was a lot of cool scenes where like Chris Evans was trying to use obviously like the fire or like the exploding gasoline to kind of trying to like burn or explode them.
How did you guys feel about The Rock's Ant-Man thing?
No, it was whatever.
Now, I think is the small rock like
he's a pebble?
Is that is that his real form as an elf, or is the big form his real form?
Yeah, like was he that small and he created elf, and then they made a contraption to make him large?
Bigger, yeah.
That would have been funny in a flashback scene. It's like a dwarf rock, still yoked out, but just like really small legs.
I say it's whatever because I don't feel like it was like outside of like that fight scene. I think they used it once in another fight scene. Like it was not like crazy overused, so it's just whatever. But yeah, no, I didn't love it either.
I think I didn't like it. Yeah.
No, I didn't like it, but at the same time, it was like it wasn't too much of a prominent thing to where I really paid much mind to it.
And obviously, so then through this scene, we are introduced to who the big bad of the movie is, Gorilla. Who
don't say her name.
Yeah, she's like Voldemort.
I guess it's it's an old Scandinavian story of like an ogre-like woman who kind of steals kids. And
did they say it was Scandinavian, or do you know the story?
I mean, it looked up a little bit. I didn't read super far into it. It was like Viking Scandinavian type story. Yeah.
Okay.
And over time, I think it developed into kind of an association with Christmas, not so much with like harboring like the naughty list, but it was kind of about like stealing kids.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, this all leads into, I guess, the next part where you do get introduced to like the Krampus character more. And I thought that like as far as lore, I found it to be one of the more interesting aspects of the movie, like Krampus being an outcast, like his whole little universe where people like admire him the way that people admire Santa. I like that. And I liked was it Krampusschlagen?
Krampusschlagen.
Yeah, Schlagen. Yeah. Enjoyed that. Although like I'm sure like Dana White was just fucking creaming himself, being like, oh, this is such good.
Do you think that was part of the budget? They had to pay him.
Like I was like, this is such good publicity for Power Slap.
Yeah.
This is gonna go viral.
100%.
Yeah. So you got the whole. They try to break into whatever his like German castle was. Instantly get caught by Chris Evans's greed. And then Chris Evans, Krampus was gonna let him go and keep the Rock's character, which by the way, what was his name? Like Callum
Drift, I think.
Callum Drift.
I feel like you love that name.
Yeah. Ian Drifted also, like.
It's a good point.
To which then, they talk their way into playing a game of slap and tickle. And
then The Rock
decide to cheat.
Uses even more steroids.
Yeah.
Slaps the shit out of Krampus.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit of a rock'em sock'em robot fight, and a quick little escape
out of there. Yeah.
Obviously, then getting the information of what Grila's plan is,
master plan, yeah,
with whatever the snow globe that acts basically as like a one-man prison to entrap people. Hey, how is she gonna take over the world with one singular snow globe? And they kind of put the pieces together that she needs to mass produce these, and that can only be done in one place:
Santa's workshop.
Which, next issue, that's her master plan, and it's the weakest fucking plan possible. Like, they escape from it. And I guess, like, I understand how they escape from it. Like, I it's not a bad concept, like, discovering they're good.
What he means is, by the way they escape from it, is Chris Evans' character and his kid get trapped in one of these snow globes.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, the idea that they imprison them, and then, yeah, like, so Chris Evans, she kidnaps his kid after his kid, like, lashes out on him and is like, "You're never here for me. Like, just don't lie and say you're going to show up to shit. You're an absentee piece of shit, dad," in not so many words. And then, yeah, he gets himself in prison because it's his kid. And he has this, like, finally has this breakthrough. And like, this is part of it where, like, The Rock and his characters, they work well together, right? Like, The Rock definitely helps him see the flaws in his way, and the whole idea of, like, I've avoided being there for my kid because I think that I'm bad for him. And it's like, well, that's what's bad for your kid. And, like, that's probably a good message for a lot of, like, bad parents out there.
Yeah, take note, Dad.
Yeah.
You think you're doing the right thing by stepping away, but the kid doesn't know that you're bad. They just think that you don't want to be around them.
Yeah, they take that as, like, I'm not good enough, or, like, whatever. And, like, where that trickles down to him then becoming on the naughty list 10 years from now or whatever it is,
Yeah.
But yeah, then the breakthrough of, like, being a better person is all it takes to get you out of those prisons. So, like, those prisons would be very short term. If anybody, I guess the idea is that, like, 98% of the people who got imprisoned in those would just bitch and complain and never actually become better people, and they would just be trapped forever.
They never really showed, like, any link to, like, their badness being what keeps them imprisoned in there. Like, she was just using the naughty list as a guide on who to trap in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never like that was a direct link to what was going to keep them trapped in there, was, like, getting off the naughty list.
Which I'm fine with her not knowing that, right? Like, that's cool. Like, that makes sense in the idea that that's how they wouldn't know to get out of, like, that she thought she was just imprisoning
people. That was just the flaw in her plan.
Yeah. Like, so I was cool with that. It does kind of minimalize the threat of everything, where it's like,
just made it really cheesy.
For one scene, they were imprisoned in these snow globes. Like, there was no real threat. Like, she talks to them when they're little people inside of the snow globe, but then literally within 2 minutes they've been imprisoned and out of that prison. So there was just no, like, build of any type of tension of, like, how would they get out of it. There was no attempt to get out that failed or anything. It was like, I accept that I'm in here and I'm just gonna finally have a heart-to-heart with my kid, and that's what's gonna get me out of it.
Yeah.
So it takes away, I just think it again, where now you have a villain that's played by a character that I don't necessarily see as an equal to The Rock, then their plan is debunked so easily and so quickly that it takes even more away from that, the idea that this character was a true threat. And then on top of that, you don't see her true form until
the end,
the very end of the movie, you know? And even that, I think, suffers again from, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping too far ahead in this, but, like, even then it hurts some of the action gripes that I have, where, like, in her true form, it's again just a CGI fest, like, kind of whatever fight.
Yeah.
So
I don't
know if I'm missing, if we missed anything.
I don't think we
jump
need to
there.
Spend a ton more time on this, though.
Yeah, obviously the whole story kind of comes back to the North Pole.
Finding out, so going back to you had mentioned, like, yeah, we find out that they've been there the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that, like, I wasn't 100% like positive that was the case, but, like, that suspicion was definitely in my brain. Like, oh, I feel like that was another red herring and they probably just never left. Obviously, I had no idea what their plan was and what they wanted to do. But then once we kind of started seeing them like manufacturing these things, I was just like, dude, they're definitely in the workshop. They never went anywhere.
And then the shapeshifter thing explains why like everything seemed fine at the North Pole otherwise. Like I like those things all kind of worked. In like the fight sequence, like Lucy Liu, seeing her like have like a physical role again, I thought was cool. Like her getting some fight sequence stuff in, because I can't remember the last time I saw Lucy Liu in an action movie. It was like X vs. Sever.
So then essentially the final plan for Grilla was she was taking all these mass-produced snow globes, and she was going to make the Christmas trek on Santa's sleigh and deliver all of these snow globes to everybody on the naughty list, and essentially trap them in their snow globes forever, for eternity or whatever, and try and make the better place in, what her vision of a better world looks like. Which now
her better world was going to consist of like 50 people.
Yeah.
That because they said that list is like infinitely
smaller
long,
and
right?
smaller. No, for the first time, the naughty list was larger than the
Nice
good
list.
list. The nice
Yeah.
list, yeah.
Yeah. The only other thing, like the fight happens and like Chris Evans is like, it's like steps up and is a part of the fight. And then Krampus shows up and tries talking her down. I like that he just gets his ass whooped like very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like Santa being the one to kind of overcome all. I thought that was good. The one thing I have left in here is like, so she falls into the thing of globes. And the idea is that like, because you touch one and it imprisons you, right? But if she was that big and she fell into all of those, she would just break them all, wouldn't she?
And I think that's kind of what happened, because then you just see like a weird swirl. Like,
but if they're broken, they can't entrap you.
Okay, well, I'm sure there was one that didn't break.
Yep.
Yeah.
But well, so I get like, that's where I said like, I get that if you touch one, but then Dante said like, it looks like they all take her in, and the idea is like she's so big and powerful that it would take multiple or something to capture her, but she just probably broke like almost all of them.
Yeah.
She's a big bitch.
Yeah. And then they free Santa, and he gets to make his Christmas morning night
so
trek.
Him having the shrinking powers was way better than The Rock.
It made way more sense, because
Yeah.
I love that for the explanation of how he gets down to the chimneys and everything.
Like just the way that whole night works is like it's like a military operation,
Yeah,
Like,
I thought that was really
I
cool.
think that was a really good depiction of that. Yeah,
it's one of the best parts of the movie is like is just like that is him just having to go and deliver all the presents, and like the way that they do it, and even the idea of like the elves dropping down to fix like the lights on the roof, and like I thought that was one of the coolest parts of the whole movie, and it's kind of just like there at the very end, but it is definitely one of the standouts to me, is that whole setup there.
This movie has like a lot of really good like bits and pieces that just don't seem to come together cohesively.
Yeah, and I think that's a good synopsis of
the
entirety of it.
And then you obviously you get one of the final scenes of Jack O'Malley and his son kind of sitting on the sleigh, watching everything happen, and getting the camaraderie of them talking back and forth, and kind of finally having their father-son connection. To which Callum Drift looks over and like finally sees the kid still alive in Chris Evans' character, and he's kind of seeing like the joy of Christmas again, and unretires, and says he wants to continue doing his job with Red One.
Part of me is like, he really wanted a sequel to this, but then the other part is like, you wouldn't have showed up late all the time and pissed in bottles and stuff. So I don't know if he really wanted it. Do you want to run through some Letterboxd reviews really quickly?
Hit me.
Do you want to read the first one, Dave, since that was the one that stood out to you immediately?
Yeah, I mean, as I've already said, like I like this movie, but I can definitely find some joy in some of the comments of people who didn't quite like it as much. One of the top comments on Letterboxd says, "A movie made for iPad kids to watch on 2x speed while they try and get a victory royale fighting in Slurpy Swamp."
It's a funny sentence.
It is definitely good.
Jesus Christ.
I have one from Kit Laser. Some movies leave you in awe of human spirit, fill you with wonder at the power of cinema. They remind you of why you love movies so much. This movie will make you want to read a book. I've seen porn with more pathos and gravitas. Krampus
Jesus
made me feel funny.
Funny how? Like,
yeah, I think that's how.
Oh, man. No, I see one here that says the hierarchy of Christmas movies is about to change, but there's no rating, so I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing.
Another one. Every time I think the human race is capable of something more, they do something like this.
I have Tim Tam Titus with a 2.5-star review that says, "Can't believe this Netflix movie isn't a Netflix movie."
Valid. Oh, man.
This is an interesting one that I like. It only got a 0.5-star review, but a 0.5-star at it because the 40X was well applied. I wonder what this movie is like in 40X. They seem to like it.
We got a 1.5-star rating. Enough gummies to sedate a large mammal, and the need for something so absolutely stupid and mindless after a long, mentally taxing week of work made this a relatively tolerable experience. Keyword being tolerable. Bad, no doubt, but I chuckled a bit, and Krampus was cool.
Krampus winning a lot of arts. 1.5-star review from Brian with a Y. One last ride. In quotation marks, Santa Dominic Toretto Claus.
It's all about family.
Oh, man.
So I ended up giving it 2.5 stars personally. I don't know where Dave, I think you probably fell in higher just based on everything you've said.
I don't think I put a star rating on it yet, but I do have it at 10 of 31.
I have it at 68 of 96.
I preemptively wanted to give it 2.5 stars, but then I think when I looked at what I was putting it amongst, it ended up getting dropped to 2, and it is at 77.
Okay,
of like 90 something.
Yeah. So, who do you trust out there, people? That's the question. Who do you believe on this one? Maybe you have an opinion yourself. If you do, make sure to drop it down in the comments below. Like, comment, share, and subscribe on the video, please. We'd appreciate that very much. And then check out FTWGT Weekly, please. Until next time, we're out.
Peace.
Merry Christmas, y'all.
A little early there, bro.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Enjoy your turkey.
Exactly. Thank you. Don't skip holidays.
For those with good taste.